serika ya Mheshimiwa Duale. Atajibiwa na wabunge wenzake. Hiyo ni maneno ya upuzi.
Mbona yeye kama ni mwerevu na yeye ni mjanja sana na amesoma sana, mbona standard gauge railway imepelekwa Naivasha na sio Eldoret?
Raila Odinga must speak emphatically about the corruption facing Mombasa County, where there are 22 fictitious accounts.
Exactly 8:03 p.m. East African time, it was bound to get dirty and ugly. Yes, the fight against corruption has done the complete full circle. It is now a political ping pong. Loss of billions of shillings, your money that should otherwise be paying for hospitals, education, roads, and other important functions, siphoned by those in power and well connected, has now been reduced to, well, a personality duel. Game on, everyone. This is News Sources. Let's begin where we should, and that's in Kilifi. Now, political winds are gathering around Kilifi following graft allegations in that county. Governor Amason Jeffa Kingi is a man under siege and is vowing to take to court companies he claims were used to siphon monies from taxpayers' money. That is tomorrow. About 1 billion shillings is said to have been lost in this latest round of graft allegations.
Serikali ya county Ijumaa hii inayokuja tunapeleka kesi kotini kushtaki kampuni hizi ili ziregeshe pesa ya watu wa Kilifi.
Absolutely. Let's start from that. From my extreme right, Dan Haemba, who's becoming a regular in this program. Karibu once more. Come more often.
Aha. If time allows.
If time allows. Julie Masiga, host of the program, Wednesdays, but now here as a guest.
Yes.
Again, welcome to Thursdays. This is how it looks. And our very own Nyambega Gisesa. Ladies, gentlemen, we're converging at Kilifi. It's bound to happen. It's always been coming. You know, we had the 51 million shillings, the usual line, the whistleblower, I'm the governor, you should not be looking at me. Then further digging down, 1 billion shillings is lost. Apparently, if miss, passwords and whatever lost. But you're here.
We saw it happening. We said it on Tuesday. The storm had been stirred. Now it's gathering momentum. We don't know where it will end.
Julie, this finally, are we getting to the real meat, or this is just going to, politics as well? Jubilee is, on it. Now they're saying we have more evidence about corruption in the counties.
Well, I think it's a good move on their part because it seems like we devolved corruption, now we're devolving responsibility. But the thing is that Raila does not have a contract with the Kenyan people to go after his governors and keep them accountable. It's the government of the day who should be doing that on all fronts in this particular equation. But good move on their part. They're saying if you're saying we're corrupt, you're corrupt as well. So game on, as you say.
Rebecca, when do people finally come and say, I'm the whistleblower?
Exactly what Julia said. I and Raila, we are the same. I'm a civilian, Raila is a civilian.
He's a party boss.
There is no...
You're not the same.
No. I'm first explaining from issues of being civilian. Raila is a civilian, Nyambega Gisesa is a civilian. There is no place, whether in the law of Kenya, whether in some backstreet laws, whether it's in where Duale comes from or anywhere, where does it say that Raila has to take responsibility for what court governors are doing. And I think this is the latest scheme by the national government to divert their attention from the graft issues that have been there. And if you remember very well, the first issues you had about graft were actually not being done. The first one was, I think it was in Embu Stadium. I never had Duale speak about that. We've had Machakos over and over again, including today when for the last 2 days about that one MCS from Machakos have been in Tanzania. I've never heard Duale speak about that. There was corruption allegation, not just in Kilifi, even also in other court counties, but I've never heard Duale speak about this. Why is he coming up to speak at this time about Kilifi County? Because it's part of the 2017 scheme, to tell the coast voters that this guy who's saying he's preaching against corruption is also, he's also protecting these corrupt governors.
Julie, and let's get to the point here about this 1 billion shillings that is lost. So first, this thing does not make sense. We are all saying IFMIS is the culprit, all right? That Anne Waiguru and NYS at that time, just to give it context, also talked about IFMIS and accounts and passwords, that passwords were also compromised. We did not accept it. So why are we going to accept it in the case of Kilifi County?
Well, we spoke to a lady, Wangari Mwikia, who actually works with the counties, and she says IFMIS, it's very easy to breach IFMIS. It's very easy to, people are sharing their passwords, and the system is not as tight as it should be. So in a sense, it is right to say that at the touch of a button now you can steal billions, whereas before you might have had to explain. Now you can add a zero, you can meddle with the system a bit, and it'll be easier for you because it's kind of, corruption now has been digitized as well as devolved. So I think they have a good point in saying that.
You see, our argument is what cartels want to hear. That it's very easy to beat IFMIS.
It is the truth.
You see, IFMIS, this is a password. You can share your password. But at the end of the day, in every county, I believe there's one authorized person to incur expenditure, one or two people. These are the people we should go against, we should go for, whether other people have used the password or not. And what cartels want is for IFMIS to fail. I think some of these so many corrupt allegations that are coming up now, it's because of these cartels that want IFMIS to fail.
Yeah, but why are you making excuses for this? Okay, that IFMIS has failed, and it's very easy for us to steal these monies. Why are you making excuses?
One, I remember it was a government directive that all payments be carried out through IFMIS. And of course, this is not the first time we are hearing about passwords being hacked into the systems. Remember, where if you go back into history, that's one point we were told there was something called computer error. So I don't know whether we saw it coming and all that. And remember, the computer error began by the then finance minister, who now happens to be the big man. And that's where we began hearing about computer errors and all that. And yes, just like even in offices, I can allow you to log in my system. For instance, if I'm not available and something needs to be transacted, I'll share with you my password. So everything is not like cast in stone. So yes, there are those loopholes, and Nyambega could be right. Cartels want to hear that those things are not working so that it goes back to business as usual. Remember what the opposition, the CORD leader has unveiled today, a prompt payment bill that will ensure that everything is transacted within 30 days, whose move is to get rid of cartels and brokers and all those guys who demand kickbacks when your payment has stolen from government. So it is a network, and beating it is not easy.
How is it, Miss Julie? You're the one,
You brought this up. No, but Shakli said to us, the expert, that at the county level, people don't understand the sanctity of a password. So they're sharing them freely. And in that, cartels already know that this system is faulty. We're not telling them anything that they don't know. So what we need to do is fix the system, because it seems like ever since, maybe it's because now we can track when money is being lost much easier because of IFMIS again. But something is definitely broken in the system, and we can't run away from that.
It's also very simple to explain this. How many guys are using IFMIS in Kenya? Probably thousands. There are parastatals, there are county governments, there is the national government. IFMIS, the issue of IFMIS password being stolen has only come up twice, in NYS and in Kilifi. So let's not use that to, to condemn the whole thing.
Hang on to that thought, because we are sticking with Kilifi County and its governor and his party boss, Raila Odinga, trooped to the Coast County and to the defense of his governor. The opposition boss now blames IFMIS for the loss of funds, absolving the embattled governor. Listen to him.
Wamehusika sio watu wa hapa peke yake, lakini makampuni ni kule Nairobi, sio? Jamaa wako na mbinu ya kupenya na kuja kuchukua pesa hapa chini, na ni wale wezi ni wale. Kwa hiyo wembe ni ule, sio?
So the difficulty in understanding this is this. So when does Raila Odinga say it's corruption? When does he say it's not? And we've been introduced to when they do these investigations. So when can we not accept when Anne Waiguru gave the same explanation and said password had been lost and someone compromised, and we cannot accept it, but then we want to accept it when Raila Odinga says it? Who appointed him?
I think that's where he's boxed himself, actually. He's boxed himself because now he's given Jubilee ammunition, and none other than Aiden Duale is on his case.
Has seen the opportunity.
He says There's no way corruption, you can only envision, you can only spot corruption at the national government. That statement by him saying that it's been done here, but the thieves are in Nairobi, it was in one way giving himself away, because in one way it confirms that perhaps the CORD leader is engaging in politics of convenience on the war against corruption, because even if it's 1 million or 500,000 shillings that has been embezzled in his territory, it's corruption. It has to be condemned with the same zeal and the same energy, and whatever action he demands at the national government has also to be seen and be enforced at the county level. So there's no excuse whatsoever in saying.
Because that sounded like the finance minister of Kilifi County, explaining how the money was lost.
Got lost, yes. But one thing we must remember, that IFMIS is a system which is operated by people. So you can't just blame the system. There are people who are compromising it. And I don't think passwords are getting lost. Passwords are being shared. There's actually a network trying to get this money out of the system. On the other hand, to say that it's politics of convenience, of course it is. I mean, we're all gearing up for the next general election, and this is one way to say that the government is corrupt, please vote for the opposition. And again, I say he does not have a contract with us to defend or to hold his so-called governors accountable for monies lost, because they are operating under the current government. But so the government should be...
He doesn't have a contract, but he's eyeing that position. Tomorrow, if the same happens, what will we hold him accountable to?
Well, his credibility, of course, might be waning, but he really does not owe the government the favor of trying to track down where monies are being lost. That's just my position.
Because I never got this question also helping this understanding.
There was one Greek king, and every time he used to receive wrong advice from his advisors, he could call them in the evening and beat them. This is what Raila should do to the person who told him to go to Kilifi. Call that person and beat that person, because it also brings the argument that Raila might not be honest in the issue of fighting corruption. And this is what the likes of Duala are trying to use, because this was a very straightforward issue. Money has been stolen from Kilifi.
Money has been lost.
That's
the point.
Lost. Let the governor follow the investigating agencies and let Raila make his state. Because now, yesterday, but when we released about that 2 audit reports from various counties. So Raila will he go to Mombasa and say that the guys who are stealing are in Nairobi. Will he go to Kakamega? Will he go to, I don't know, there are corruption allegations in Kisii or in Nyamira anyway. Will he still go to those places?
I can tell you without fear of contradiction, there are questions the Auditor General has asked for Kisii and Nyamira County. But we get back to the point. He's tied himself in knots here, okay? That the fight against corruption needed a crusader and a whistleblower, if you like, but that is politics of convenience.
Yes, politics of convenience, which, where as things stand, could work to his disadvantage, because the government had been cornered. Of course, it was corruption left, right, center, and we expected that more scams are coming out. But for him to go on that podium, as Nyambega says, whoever told him to go to Kilifi and pick on that, he's actually exposed him, because now he's lost what we'd call that moral authority and credibility, because for him to expose himself as practicing politics of convenience, for a man of his stature, I think that was a disservice to himself.
Why do we always blame the people around them? Or president or whoever you might pick is not so bad, but the people around him are bringing him down. Raila or anybody in a position of power should know the right thing to do at any given moment in time. But having said that, I don't see anything wrong with politics of convenience. This is an election, it's a contest. We're fighting for people's votes. We have to show one side to be wrong and the other side to be right. This might have been a fumble for him, because he shouldn't come out defending, again I say, his so-called governors, because he's not in government. But everybody should be on that train heading to the election and not letting these kind of scandals even be heard.
Because we're getting into much problems, and still sticking on this, the EACC has summoned Amason Jeffer Kingi to appear before it. I think that's tomorrow. So, it appears that defense came a bit too early. He might be going to the EACC with him now. But I'll go to that thought. So the residents of Kilifi County today took to the streets, demonstrating against Raila Odinga's support for Amason Kingi over the loss of 1 billion shillings. Raila's defense to the governor has angered residents of Kilifi County, claiming that Raila was aiding corruption in the counties. You can see the pictures there. You can make your point to Alatit.
This is just my point, that these demonstrations are sponsored by Jubilee politicians in Kilifi because of these reasons. We know that in the Coast Province, the person who is leading the President Uhuru Kenyatta campaign in 2017 is Gideon Mongaro, who is also vying for the seat for governor for Kilifi. So these demonstrations, to me, those demonstrators
it's
to me are not honest.
It's been handed to him. This election has been handed to him.
These people should have demonstrated against their governor. You know, at first, before they even start demonstrating against Raila Odinga. And if I was these people, by now I should have gone to the office and personally ejected those the people who share those passwords. That's what I think they could have done.
I concur with what Gisesa is saying. The whole thing, to borrow the president's word, it's degenerating into a circus. On Friday, we saw some angry section of Malindi residents with the placards, simply because Deputy President William Ruto had on Thursday said that we want the county government of Kilifi to come clean on them then, 51 million. What happened a day later? They were on the streets with placards, hurling all sorts of insults to the national government and saying, kama walaji nyama wako huko, sisi huko hatuna chakula. A week later, another section has stormed Kingi's office. Clearly, as Nyambega said, these are Jubilee-sponsored demos, which they are countering what happened by code. So the whole thing is actually degenerating into a circus.
But I don't think you should discount the self-agency of the people of Kenya, because that's where it comes right back to. Because money is being stolen, the economy is not doing so well, things are going up, and people are stealing billions. So no matter what your intent was when you went to the streets, sponsored by Jubilee or by CORD, you still have an actual problem that somebody needs to solve.
Yes, and that's where we are losing it, because, as you've said, today somebody stands here and demands accountability on this. Tomorrow something happens, the tune changes. Today somebody said these people must fix this. A section comes and demonstrates. A week later, another section comes and demonstrates. So the whole thing is now turning into a circus, whereas there is a real problem which will be now lost in the middle of all this.
In the chaos.
And I think you'll look at this. The Duales are speaking now. This is the Jubilee government. If you remember what happened in Gachagua County, that's in Nyeri. In Nyeri, the MCA says, these guys misappropriated money. They started holding barazas, he sent goons, they were beaten. They went to impeach him. They were beaten in the county assembly. And then until a day they say that now we have to sleep and ensure that this guy is beaten. These issues have never been resolved from that time up to now. Now we again talking about Kilifi.
But beyond the politics of the thing, Kisesa, in terms of now the people, Raila is being shown in perhaps an equally corrupt light because of his governors. What choices do we have next year in the election? Because it seemed like CORD was on a platform of Jubilee is corrupt and we are not so much. But
Smart.
now it's we've leveled out.
Raila has no governor. You know, that's a fact that I also have to state. What we have is governors who belong to ODM or belong to CORD. We have the national government where the president is the one who's responsible, and the county government that has governor. Raila himself has no governors.
Agreed, but his personhood now, we've cast aspersions on his character because it seems like he's defending somebody who might have stolen money at the county level by coming out to defend him. In terms of now, next year we're going to an election. Now we have two corrupt choices. Who do we choose? Or do we go for a third force?
Choose the one that is yet to steal.
Or maybe it would be another case of what happened in the US, the case of lesser evil and the bigger evil. Whom do you settle for?
I think we'll be at a better position to fight corruption in this country if it's not politicized. Like the issue in Kilifi.
But how do you not politicize it? Because that's the question. How do you not politicize this issue?
My Deputy President, William Ruto, should have kept quiet and concentrated first on other national building issues so that Raila will also have not responded. And this is the same thing I want to tell Raila Odinga to do. If there are corruption allegations involving a member maybe from one of the county that was won by ODM, just keep it off. Let the investigating people do. And now he should just concentrate on the bill which he said he wants to be taken to Parliament. I think that's the best way.
So corruption obviously is becoming a central issue in the next election, 9 months into it. And you can see why Jubilee, has pounced on this opportunity, and as well why, this appears to be a political malpractice from the opposition at this point.
Well, it's, as I said, it's bound to be. But when people like Aiden Duale say something, you have to judge them against what they've been saying all along. So take everything with a pinch of salt. It's campaign season, silly season, some might say, and accept and move on.
Well, speaking of Duale. And we're asking you on Twitter poll if you think Raila Odinga is sincere in his campaign against corruption. Is Raila Odinga sincere in his campaign against corruption? I'm seeing your tweets. Let me know at James Smart, hashtag at KTN News and hashtag News Sources. I'm happy to hear your thoughts and opinion. Let's move on now. And Majority Leader Aden Duale is now accusing Opposition Chief Raila Odinga of propagating corruption at the county. Duale claims that Raila is being funded by code governors who are in turn forced to dip their hands into county coffers as a result. And listen to him.
Raila Odinga must speak emphatically about the corruption facing Mombasa County, where there are 22 fictitious accounts. He must face and tell us emphatically his position about the 1.4 billion loss in Kilifi County. Those are his greatest defenders. He must emphatically tell us about the 3.2 billion loss in Nairobi County. And so, if you read the audit report, Migori, Siaya, Kakamega.
There we are. Jubilee, straight on and point on, very clearly. And it's very clear, that they are pointing towards something.
Yeah.
Corruption as well.
Yes.
So where do we go from here?
No, I agree with him. Raila must speak emphatically against all corruption in the Republic of Kenya. You cannot put him in a box and say...
Cherry pig.
Yes, you can only talk about opposition or you can only talk about government. He must speak against corruption because he's the voice of the people at this point, of the opposition, which is generally speaking for those who are not heard. So I agree with Aden Duale. He's spot on. We should speak against corruption.
Yes, I also concur with Aden Duale emphatically. And Aden Duale hasn't spoken emphatically about the 5 billion at the health scandal, at the health ministry, the same way he spoke emphatically about NYS before beating a hefty
This is the problem I have with the corruption discussion, yeah? that when it's Jubilee's time,
emphatically
they lose the emphasis, right? On how to speak about corruption. And Code are emphatic,
yes,
about it. When it's Code's time, and especially in the counties, Jubilee are emphatic about it.
Okay, I also agree with the former school teacher Aden Duale emphatically that Raila is going to the elections next year against Uhuru Kenyatta.
And one of
sorry?
All Kenyans.
Why are you certain that is Raila against Uhuru Kenyatta?
Okay, according in my own opinion. And what I want him to do, we have an audit report. They are in 32 counties. Let him have his team of technocrats. I know he has a lot of them. Let them go through all the counties and make a statement specifically from those counties. And before he rushes to go and defend another governor, let him first be advised on that. That will be the best way to keep off the likes of Duale.
Why do you think it's important for Raila Odinga to defend, his governors?
No. I don't think it's important for him to defend his governors at all. He should just go emphatically against all corruption in this country, his governors and those who are not his governors as well, because we can't run away from this. This is politics, and we're trying to win an election. And how else?
This is the thing. Uhuru Kenyatta's problem is that he cannot fight corruption because he doesn't want to pay the political cost of fighting corruption, which is cutting loose some of the people who were mentioned on corruption. Raila Odinga has the same problem, and that is what Jubilee is aiming at, that he cannot cut loose these governors who supposedly would be funding his elections.
And that's where, that's the biggest challenge of the dilemma, that if Raila Odinga is not careful, it will be his biggest undoing. His credentials speak for himself, what he stands for, where he stands for, at what particular point, and that. But on this one, where now he wants to play delicate, for instance, as Nyambega says, what prompted his immediate flying to Mombasa, Kilifi yesterday morning and standing in solidarity with those issues? We know too well that if there are queries with regard to corruption, we have the agencies. If it's not the DCI, we have the EACC. Those are the bodies that he should have left them to handle that. If at all those governors, they know that their transactions, their dealings are above board, there's no point of having the boss fly there, then try to. What if tomorrow, after now that Kingi has been summoned, and then there are actually proof that there are questions here, where does he now stand and say that are contrary to what I said didn't happen. And that's why it's important for him to take time. As Nyambega says, he has a team of technocrats and advisors. They should go through. We looked at some of the funny things in the Standard yesterday. For instance, Vihiga County, around 400,000 that are some MCAs that were given packs for being smartly dressed like Julie, and then for being very active, and then in the debating, then they were given some cash. Such things, how do you defend? So
and I think let's call a spade a spade. I think there is definitely, I will say the word, definitely corruption at the county level. And this is what we have to deal with across the board, not just in core areas, but in Jubilee areas as well. Question then becomes, whose responsibility is it to ensure that we are managing it? Because clearly we cannot eradicate it altogether. So that's my problem with this whole Raila should talk, Raila should not talk equation.
You know, smart today, Julia and Kaimba are oozing with a lot of wisdom. But I don't know that it's because they are sitting next to me. Anyway, this is the point. You remember the issue which happened in Kisumu, when the allegations of corruption in Kisumu. What did ODM as a party do? It carried out an audit for Kisumu. Kilifi, nothing like that has happened. When you're going to the next election, I think the high levels of corruption will reach at a point whereby Kenyans will not take corruption as one of the issues in campaigns. If it's like, is this leader corrupt? You think all of them are corrupt. Now you look for, another thing to use. Because Raila, a few years ago, he could come and tell people that I was there as a second liberation hero. I'm the person who brought you, multi-party democracy and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. What will he tell people next year? What will be different from what Uhuru Kenyatta will be telling people?
All right.
That's the challenge.
I'm asking you on the Twitter poll if you think Raila Odinga is sincere in his campaign against corruption, and the tweets are coming in thick and fast. Nicholas Kulabi says Raila is sincere because Kilifi has promised to prosecute the thieves, but the national government has no such attempt. All right. Someone else says, who listens to Duale at this time in his pressers? He's mentioned in NYS scandal and he has absolutely no moral ground. Tweeters, looking for your tweets. And I'll be mentioning it as we go along on this program. This is News Sources. Taking a short break. We'll be right back.